Hello, my friends. It is Amy Rich with amyrich.net. I am so excited that Paper Pumpkin has turned 10 years old and it just keeps getting better and better. And of course, one of my favorite things to do is come up with an alternate project that works well with the supplies in the kit. And you can see the adorable projects the kit makes, but we're going to use the little pieces to make something just a bit different. Look at these card bases. It was so hard for me to choose. Oh, there's a butterfly. It was so hard for me to choose which one to use for my alternate. Such pretty things. But I settled on just the dot. And then 2 of the envelopes, simply because envelopes can be easily replaced. So using 2 of them from the kit isn't going to hurt too much, because we can always use just plain envelopes when we're all done. And then of course we've got the amazing stamp set, and we'll get to that a little bit later again. But both of the stamp sets actually are amazing and they work well together. And of course the little Stampin' spot in polished pink, and then a few of the die cuts from the kit. So we are going to create a fun fold card that's called a box card in our project today. Let's start by bringing in the trimmer and cutting our envelopes. So I am going to opt to cut both at the same time. Since they're thin, the blade can get through them just fine, but I'm going to cut the pretty flap off first. And then I'm going to turn that so that the flat end is at the top of my trimmer. And then I'm going to line up the curve in the envelope top, in the flap top, right here in the cutting groove. And then I'm going to trim that off. And we're just going to work our way around, making sure every section is flat. Now when I cut this one, I'm going to cut it at 1 3/8 inches. So I'm going to cut that there. And then I am going to turn it one more time and cut it at 5 inches here, so that we've got 2 really pretty designer series papers to use in our project. And then I'm going to grab my polka dots and I'm going to trim off 2 1-inch pieces. And then check that out. That's going to make a really cool fun fold. And perhaps you should go check out my blog, because I have a sample using this section of the leftover card. And you can check out what I made by visiting amyrich.net. All right, so we've got our 2 pieces now. We want to cut these also at 5 inches so that the finished size is 1 by 5. Now, if you don't have the Paper Pumpkin kit, you can certainly produce the same card using different supplies. Now we're going to bring in a piece of garden green that measures 8.5, so the regular width, by 10. So it's a little bit shorter. We cut off 1 inch. And then I scored it at 2 inches, and then at 3.5, and then at 6.5, and again at 8. And again, the template for this will be found on my blog. But I want to thank Mary Dethridge, because she created the template and it was so easy to follow, and I so appreciate that. It was nice to be able to use that. And then turn it and score the other direction at 1.5 and 7. So you've got all of those score lines ready for action. We're going to put the trimmer away for right now. And then we're going to start folding. And I would suggest doing an accordion fold. So just on each end though, let me show you what I mean. So we're going to fold the first section back, and then the second section forward. So in that case, it's an accordion fold that really makes a Z. And I'm going to do the same thing the other way. So I'm going to go backwards and then forwards on the next one, so that what you get is something that looks like this. And the edges should, or the folded edges here should come together in the center. And then we're going to, on this part, we are going to fold those sections up. And this is just to get the card to go together more smoothly. If you folded it wrong, now that you have folded and used the bone folder, you will be able to refold if need be. Now we're going to bring a ruler in. This center section on either side is 3 inches. So I'm going to use my ruler so I can see those 3 inches. And then I'm going to make a tick mark at halfway, which is 1.5. So I'll make a tick mark right up to the edge, and I'm going to do that on the other side as well. Now we're going to make score lines from the corners of this 3-inch section up to that tick mark. And there are a couple different ways that you can do it. You can use your trimmer, but it's hard to see where the corners are when you use your trimmer. So what I decided to do is use my ruler and then take a scoring tool. Now this is an old Stampin' Up! Scoring tool, excuse me, but you can use the one from the Simply Scored if you would like. So you line up your ruler at that tick mark, and then down here at that corner that I talked about in that 3-inch section, and push hard to make your score line. And then do the same thing on the other side so that you've got a V there. And then we're going to do the same thing over here. So just lining those up, then you know it's going to be nice and straight. We'll do the same thing on this side. And then when I fold these, I'm going to actually fold out like this. And we only want to fold where, just where those score lines are. So we're going to do that on both sides so that those are mountain folds facing up. Now we're going to take our scissors and cut out each of the 4 corners. Now I'm going to take you through step by step so that you can see easily where I'm cutting and what I'm doing before moving on to the next step. Now for the next step, we're going to cut here into the next score line on each of these sides so that you have a little flap. So here's your flap, and we're going to do that all the way around. Okay, next step is to cut these in half. And again, this suggestion is from Mary Deathridge. She said it just cuts away the bulk a little bit, which I love because sometimes it does get a little bit bulky when you're trying to put a box together, which is kind of what we're doing here, even though it's a card and it will lay flat. Okay, once those are halfway, cut halfway, now one more step, we're going to angle cut so they don't catch funny when we put the box together. So angle cut at each of those shorter sides. Okay, we are going to now decorate these 2 ends. So bring in the envelope pieces that you cut earlier, and then cut 2 pieces of shaded spruce that measure 1.5 by 5 1/8. And then you'll adhere these to create a pretty layer. Once that is done, we are going to work on the center section. For the center section, I decided just to cut a piece of the Enjoy the Journey Designer Series paper, 2.5 by 5 inches. And we are just going to do some quick stamping on there using just that envelope that I cut. And I could probably repurpose that, but I guess I'm not gonna this time. And then the leaves here from the stamp, one of the stamp sets in the Paper Pumpkin kit. I'm gonna stamp that in Garden Green. And that's gonna go at an angle, oops, like this. Just a little extra foliage in the background is nice. Then we're gonna adhere a couple of these pieces to help fill out the foliage. And I'm going to use some liquid glue. And you don't really need to get each and every leaf, just a few of them. And then that's going to kind of match up the bottom of the stems. And then we'll add this colorful one. Oh, it's so pretty with a little gold in there. And the gold is what's nice. It brings some of the pieces together, as you'll see when we finish. And then this one will go right up here, like so. And then we're going to add our pot. And the pot also comes from the kit. And I would like my pot to be flat at the bottom. So you see it's going to go off the edge just a little bit. So I'm going to take my snips and just flatten out the bottom of my pot. And then take a couple of the dimensionals from the kit to adhere that over the stems. So cute. Then using the polished pink ink and my sentiment that says, "Here's to another year of growth," I am going to ink that up and stamp that up here, not too close to the top, but right above the foliage. Adding a couple of gold pearls from the Festive Pearls will just help set this off a little bit. And I'm just gonna put them in with the foliage. That looks really pretty. I like adding the pink sentiment because it brings that designer series paper that we made together. Let's add that piece to a piece of shaded spruce, cut just an 1/8 inch bigger at 2 5/8 by 5 1/8. And then once that layer is on there, we can adhere this to the inside of our box card with a nice border all the way around. Now we can put the box together. We're going to start down here, fold those little flaps in, and add your adhesive. Liquid glue works well for me. You could try some tear and tape or some Seal Plus, but we're going to now adhere those sections to the sides of our box. And just hold them in place for a little bit if you're using liquid glue so that it gives it a chance to adhere. We'll do the same thing to the other side. Fold the flaps in. Now what the V's do at the top and the bottom is allows for the box to get pushed in and closed so that we have a card-sized box that will pop open when opened out of the envelope. Isn't that cool? I love it. Now to decorate the inside so that we don't see those ugly tabs, we're just going to take those polka dot pieces that were cut 1 by 5 and we're going to add those to 1 1/8 by 5 1/8, and we're going to adhere those to the inside. It might be a good idea to use liquid glue for these so that you can slide them into place, making sure they are where you want them to be before it dries. It just gives it a little bit more of a finished look. So here's our box. Now we need a belly band. we're going to take a piece of 1 1/4 by 9 1/2 shaded spruce. We're going to stick that behind the card and bring our ends forward. I'll put adhesive on this end and then this end over here, so that when they adhere together, it'll be adhered at both ends. And make sure not to keep it so tight so that you can't slide it back and forth. I cut a piece of basic white with the Stitch Rectangles dies. And then I'm going to stamp the happy from the stamp set right in the center of that piece. I'm going to grab some Stampin' Dimensionals, and I'm going to adhere 3 across our belly band, making sure, of course, that the happy is not going to be too small to cover those dimensionals. I should have checked that before I did it. And now we're just going to decorate that really quick. In the kit, we have these amazing gold happies, and when I popped them out, there's some gold around it that I saved. I'm going to take our leaf punch here, and I am going to cut out the smaller leaf. Look at how pretty. And then I'm even going to put a dimensional on the back of that center one. Cutting just an edge works really well for such a tiny space. And that's in order to keep that petal from breaking off if it sits free. So now I'm just going to add a little liquid glue, and that will get adhered right here with that center petal being adhered with the dimensional down to the belly band. This odd looking greenery comes next. I think it's great because it's unique, but we're just going to put some liquid glue on there and adhere that kind of opposite of the leaf. Then with a piece of gold cord, I'm just going to adhere, just put a little glue, and we're going to, or adhesive. In this case, it is Stampin' Seal. And I'm going to make a little figure 8 with this cord. And then I'll just trim that off. And then one thing I love about the stamp sets here is that they really go nicely together. So we have the happy, so you can have happy spring, happy Easter, happy anniversary, happy to call you friend. But then it also works with birthday over here, which is what I chose, Mother's Day. So all of those happies are so fantastic. So I grabbed a little label from the Paper Pumpkin kit and the birthday, and I'm going to ink that up with our polished pink spot, stamp that in the center of our label, and then we're going to pop this up with a couple of the dimensionals. I'm going to put 1 on each end because it's going to sit up over the top of that cord. And I want it to adhere onto our belly band. So I have my figure 8 meeting in a weird spot, so I'll just move that up and then try this again. I want to be able to cover up where the cord meets. And there you go. So I adhered that right on to the belly band over here on the right side. So now we're going to add a couple more pearls. And then that butterfly we saw floating around, that brushed breast butterfly, which is the perfect accent, we're going to add just right up here at the top. And look at how cute. Oh my goodness. And then if we open that up, one other thing you can do is add a bow. And by the magic of a bow with the gold cord, and by the magic of television, I'm going to bring in a finished card. You can see that this one I used black ink. and I had the teeny little bow added to the pot at the bottom. So there are a couple different versions that I did using a couple different sentiments. This one I had Happy Mother's Day and Happy Birthday. So I hope you enjoyed that alternate project. It's a great one for a very special person. And of course, you can check all of the details out on my blog, which is linked down below in the description of the video. Thank you for joining me. I'll see you again next time for another great project.